expressed on the internet would be censored.
We are live. We are live. This is real. Welcome back to Unauthorized Opinions, UOPod.com. Like, share, subscribe.
It's pure propaganda and it's super cringe, by the way.
I literally went to the polls with nothing in mind. I saw a can of orange soda in the parking lot. And I was like, yeah, there we go. An unopened can of orange soda just chilling in the parking lot. I was like, yeah, I got to vote for Trump, dude.
Your podcast sucks. It's mental, mate. It's absolutely mental.
I'll be honest, I thought it was kind of offensive when you talk so much about the Loch Ness Monster.
Political climate.
And Andrew, treat yourself, okay? Especially if you start, I don't know, getting in good with homeless people.
Unauthorized Opinions, streaming everywhere at uopod.com. Cock-a-doodly-doodly-doo, man. Guess who's back? Back again. I almost started the podcast by playing the Pac-Man behind me, but that would have been like me positioned with my backside to the camera. Wouldn't have been pretty. I did beat the first level there, though. I don't remember how far I've gotten on that. It's not as hard as I remembered. It gets harder. But this is coming from the guy who spent an entire semester in college one time beating Tetris. Some guy somewhere beating Tetris in like Russia. No, it didn't happen. It was me. News class in radio school. Shout out Paul Cross, the professor. But it was me. 99 levels of Tetris in a sitting. So, sorry, everybody. Unauthorizedopinions.com, uopod.com. We're on Patreon. We're on Rumble. We're on X. We're on YouTube and Twitch right now. Super chats will be read on air from YouTube. And, of course, you are listening on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts if you're an OG. And please leave us a review if you haven't there already. Somebody says, what is this? Well, it's Unauthorized Opinions. You'll be agreeing with us before the episode is done. We've got lots to get to. It's the gender brain gap. And what that means is the gender pay gap is, hurting brains all across the world. That includes Ronda Rousey. They're coming for Caitlin Clark now. We're going to take a trip back in time through some images of previous protests, and we have some words from Sam Hyde as well, who I recently spoke to. So big show, wonderful show. Let's get into it. If you haven't been tracking Ronda Rousey, former UFC fighter, former champion, former pioneer, or still a pioneer, she's still alive, of UFC, of the women's division. They said it was never going to happen. Dana White said, there'll never be women fighting in the UFC. She did. She dominated for several years. You can argue she didn't fight the best, and while that's probably true, she didn't fight the best of the best at the time. She fought a lot of the best, and, you can't take that away from her. You can't take away, her 11 straight wins or whatever it was, and title defenses in there. She eventually lost to Holly Holm, got kicked in the face, and then she lost again to Amanda Nunes. Now, if you're keeping track, she recently had said that she's still the best fighter of all time, not even female fighter, which she isn't. She's not the best female fighter of all time. She said she's the best fighter of all time, bar none. And she said that the only reason she lost was because she had concussions. She had so many concussions that she would get jabbed in practice and get concussed from that. So she was in no way, shape, or form to perform in her final two fights because of her concussions. We will be analyzing that in a moment. But Ronda, she's been on podcasts talking about this lately. Most recently, she was on Big Chris Cuomo. That's an unfortunate screenshot there of Chris Cuomo. But she was on Cuomo's podcast recently, which I guess is the Chris Cuomo Experience Project. I thought it was going to be Experiment Project, the Chris Cuomo Project. We love you, Chris, right? We do. Don't copyright strike this. But here she is saying more gobbledygook about how everyone turned their back on her.
As you're talking about what the reality was of what changed for you in your fight game, have you heard from any of your old friends? Have they, whether it's, a name like Rogan or just people who you thought were your friends that many people don't know, have people reached out to you and been like, I didn't know that. I wish I had known that. I would have never said that. Because nobody is correcting themselves. I haven't heard anybody, and it's not like I work for the UFC. I don't cover MMA, but I watch a lot of it. And nobody has changed their assessment of you. Not that you have a bad assessment. I mean, you're a legend of the fight games, no question about it.
Yeah, but MMA media hates me. It's fine. No, not a single person has called me or anything like that. They've all just doubled down and said that I'm making excuses or lying or blowing things out of proportion or not giving credit where it's due or, no, I have not. I'll be waiting for that call forever.
Are you waiting for it, though, or do you get it, and do you get where they're coming from and why?
I'm not waiting for it, and I get that they're a bunch of assholes. That's what I get. I get fuck you. But, at least I would rather not have those fake friendships in my life. I would rather that those people expose themselves and I don't, leave myself open to them. I would rather cleanse myself of all those, fake superficial relationships than have them still around.
Well, maybe it's because I know a little bit what it's like to be dragged.
We don't need to hear the rest from Chris Cuomo there. I think there's a little bit of another clip here about Ronda, specifically talking about Joe Rogan.
Still, people are like, so are you going to fight again? I'm like, dude, I'm done. I gave you enough. I gave you everything I had. I cut my heart out and I pulled it out and I spiked it on the canvas of the cage. And they're like, so you're going to fight again? They're like, no, I did everything I could. God.
Okay, maybe so not there. But what she did say about Joe Rogan is she said that she was pandering to everybody and doing things that other people would think is cool, but she didn't really enjoy the fame. I do not enjoy being paparazzi famous. I hate it. Now, in terms of her fame and the MMA media, let's see. She went up and she said, it was disappointing to see how happily everyone turned on me. People like Joe Rogan, who were crying in the ring out of the honor of being able to call my fights, people I considered friends in the media, so quickly turned on me. Now, Ronda Rousey is promoting a book. And Ronda Rousey is making the rounds on many shows. And good for her, right? We want her to make money. We want her to have a career post MMA, post wrestling. But the chickens have come home to roost now. The idea that Joe Rogan turned his back on you is not only far from the truth for just her specific situation, but the idea that Joe Rogan turned his back on somebody who he's praised like Ronda Rousey is so far from the truth, it's ridiculous. The MMA media did not specifically and does not specifically pick on Ronda Rousey. So Joe Rogan, who gets in the ring and says it's an honor to call your fights, there's no doubt in my mind that he's sincere. But Ronda Rousey coming out now and saying she's the best of all time, the entirety of MMA media is assholes. They just like to pick on me and say I'm making excuses. This isn't the case. While the MMA media may very well be assholes, a lot of them, not going to say all of them. There's many of them that I really like. There's many of them that I don't like. But the idea that they're picking on Ronda and saying that she's making excuses, she just can't handle any criticism, guys. This is what Ronda Rousey is. She was a great fighter who then, when she got too big to fail, they had nowhere else to put her. They had no one else to put her up against. She managed to avoid Cyborg Santos for so long. She managed to avoid even Gina Carano, who would have beat her. Gina Carano, in that era, came the closest to beating Cyborg Santos that anyone had ever come. Okay? Those two would have beaten Ronda Rousey. And then Holly Holm, who's a real kickboxer, a real fighter, who'd been knocked out in her own right a couple times. She got brutally knocked out in kickboxing, okay? She was undefeated in MMA, came and cleaned Ronda's clock because there was somebody that could actually block, or somebody that could actually box. Ronda Rousey couldn't box to save her life. She got to this point, just like so many champions do, where they go away for what makes them a champion. Khabib Nurmagomedov, amazing grappler, right? There was a period where he tried to box too much and he almost lost because of it, and then he went and dominated on the ground. This happens to champions. They get bored, they get a little complacent, they think they're better than they are at the things that didn't make them a champion. That's what happened to Ronda. She thought she could box with everyone now. She got her clock cleaned by Ronda, right? Concussed, whatever. Comes back a year later, gets absolutely destroyed by Amanda Nunes, who is the best female fighter of all time. That's the actual best female fighter of all time. But Ronda comes out and says she only lost because of her concussion. She was so concussed, even though her body was fine and her skills were fine. She even said that she was at the best she'd ever been, but she was so concussed that she lost. It's not true. It's just not true. She got beaten by better fighters. And to say that she was so concussed that, that's the only reason I stopped. Ronda Rousey, before her return fight against Amanda Nunes, she had already started working with the WWE. Now, say what you want about the WWE, predetermined match outcomes and everything. It's not exactly a concussion-free zone. It's not exactly a contact-free zone. And what did she do immediately after she lost to Amanda Nunes? Well, she went back into wrestling full-time. She had been dabbling in it. She was at WrestleMania. You can't just not have collisions in wrestling matches. You don't get to just walk around and do nothing. They'll do that for people who are just there to show off their body. They've done that in the past, but they still inevitably end up getting into contact. The idea that Ronda was so concussed that she was unable to handle even sparring is so out of this world that it's insane. Now, I don't know her, obviously. I don't know her mental state at the time. But what do you do when you're so concussed that you might trip and fall and die? Because that's how concussed you would have to be, the way she's speaking. That if you get rocked by a jab, that means you're a bad fall away from brain bleeding and possibly death. And then you go into wrestling. Like, that's just not how it works. Ronda Rousey couldn't box. There used to be a video of her sparring, okay? Or shadow boxing. And the UFC erased it from the internet because you could do stuff like that last night. This was her boxing. This was her, I'm not even doing it justice. This was her shadow boxing. We all know this video. MMA fighters know, or MMA fans know this video of Ronda shadow boxing like this. It was wiped from the internet because she had a terrible boxing coach who said she was the best in the world. She never had to improve on anything. That's what happened. Everyone knows it. It's the same, like, when Hillary Clinton comes on or Biden comes on, they act like you don't understand what happened 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Or when activists come on, they say everything used to be so racist. There were no black people in movies in the 90s. This is what the problem is here. This is how Ronda's acting. Nobody remembers what happened in 2010 or 2011 when we all knew you couldn't box and everyone would accuse your coach of being terrible and that he didn't teach you the proper stuff. He just said, go out there and do this and you're amazing. Nobody can criticize you. Nobody remembers this. Ronda Rousey, people aren't picking on you. It's because you were good, but you weren't as good as the UFC said you were. You were really good. But they had to hide you for a while. They did. Everyone knows this. They had to hide you from extremely good fighters of the time. And when you fought them, you lost. When you lost to Holly, you lost to Amanda. Everybody was like, yes, that's pretty much what we knew was going to happen. But good on you, Ronda. You took the fights. It's fine if you retire now because it's not going to get any better than it was. The idea that she went, my brain couldn't handle it, but for some reason I can go and do professional wrestling. Like, what the hell is that? She's still in her late 30s, by the way. There are women who are fighting and have fought that at older ages. She could potentially come back. Your brain is fine for wrestling, but it's not fine for fighting. You could still come back. There's still time. There's still places. But no. Ronda Rousey, gigantic L. Good on Chris Cuomo for interviewing her. He kissed her ass a little bit. But, the gender brain gap is here specifically with Ronda, thinking that nobody remembers. And then to say Joe Rogan, this is the person you want to call out by name. Joe Rogan. The guy who's going to be, who would be there for you now. If you said, Joe, I want to come on your show and explain myself. It's probably because he would challenge her. That's probably why she doesn't want to do it. Now, from disappointing female athlete, and not the best of all time, to clearly the best of all time female athlete, Caitlin Clark, right? And, I've stayed away from Caitlin Clark, the basketball player, because I don't really care. I watched a bit of her. Clearly, she's the best. She can shoot from further than any other woman can shoot for without being blocked. You see these highlight reels of influencers. Look how far these girls can shoot from, but they could never do it in a game. Caitlin Clark is the real deal. Her records prove it, right? Now she's got this WNBA deal. And I said, I'm going to sit back and watch as they try to ruin her life. Why? Because the WNBA, and we're not kidding here, we're not being insulting, the WNBA is full of lesbians who are predominantly black. This is not an insult to either of those categories. But the personalities of the WNBA will not allow this to happen. And I will stand by these remarks. The personalities, the Brittany Grinders of the WNBA crybaby, America hating losers of the WNBA will not allow this to happen. Neither will the activists. So they've started now. And they started with her salary. They started now with the gender pay gap, okay? This is where they started with, because they know this won't work. But they have to start here. They have to try it. Every 3 months, if you haven't noticed, pay attention to this. Every 3 months, somebody says, the gender pay gap, you guys, but the women, they're paid less they're paid their due penance fewer times than the male counterparts for the exact same jobs. Obviously not true. Women know this, men know this, economists know this. Caitlin Clark's salary, notice these are opinion pieces. They all will be. Caitlin Clark's salary shows that WNBA players deserve more money. They do not, of course. $76,000 a year is what she's making. And of course, she's going to make millions more. But $76,000 a year is what she's making as a rookie in the WNBA. She was drafted. And we can scroll down and we can find out how much they're getting paid for the rest of the league. Sorry about that. Her first round pick helped drive a 304% increase in viewership for the WNBA draft this week, shattering previous rating records with 2.46 million. And I don't know why the title was like this about her salary and the WNBA deserving higher salaries, but they go on to say comparing what NBA players make to WNBA players is like comparing apples to tractor trailer parts. The name of the game is revenue. The men's game gets much more of it. WNBA has a contract worth $60 million. The NBA's is worth $2.7 billion. Okay. Then we ship on over. How much is the average salary? She's not even making the average because she's a rookie. The league's minimum salary is $62,000. The maximum is capped at $235,000. The average salary is $113,000 per year. Now I don't know what the rookie maximum is, but if they are indeed paying her lower than the rookie max, it is because they know the other players are going to rage. They're going to rage for the very reason that we're about to show you. She is making so much more money than them already. These were her offers for endorsement deals. Puma $3 million, Under Armour 4 times 4, $16 million, Adidas 4 years for $6 million total, and then Nike $28 million over 8 years, which actually comes out to less than the Under Armour deal, but 8 years is a lot longer to be on everybody's radar, obviously. So she's going to be making, upwards of $10 million a year, I'm guessing, out of endorsements and content and everything. She could start a YouTube channel. She could start hawking things on Instagram. Whatever she wants, right? Probably around $10 million a year. But what she is not is one of the crybabies that they want in the WNBA. Now, I don't even dislike this Angel Reese girl, but I just want to show you what she's up against. The WNBA is a league that nobody watches, and it's a league that is ripe for the activism's taking. The left-wing journalist activist is going to take everything they can from the WNBA, extract it like a bee with pollen, twist it around, and say, I care about women, all while just using it for their own benefit. The WNBA is about to have at least 2 new girls who have a big following on there and are pretty good at basketball. Caitlin Clark being the best. Angel Reese is good, but she's not the best. And they're going to take this and they're going to extract it for all it's worth, the activists and the journalists are. They're going to suck it dry. Not because they like basketball, not because they care about women's sports, because they see an opportunity to, crush a male-centric society as they see it, and to crush Caitlin Clark because she's a white girl in a predominantly black space. That's the reality of what's going to happen. And the reason why they're going after her, and we're about to see why after this, these are the type of players she's up against. Let's actually go to the article first. I don't want to keep you guys waiting. On this article, I predicted it would happen. The racism game is coming out. The Caitlin Clark effect and the uncomfortable truth behind it, you guys. From The Athletic. This is not a paywall article, so don't come at me, bro. It's not surprising that corporations are lining up for fans along arena railings to get Caitlin Clark's autograph. The former Iowa Star's transcendent talent, who has proven she is as proficient at breaking viewership records as scoring marks, drawing capacity crowds at home and on the road, and even attracting 17,000 spectators to an open practice during Final Four weekend. Her WNBA jersey sold out within hours of her being drafted. Multiple teams of upcoming games have moved upcoming games to large venues to accommodate unprecedented demand for the Fever games. Whatever team that is. The Indiana Fever. So all great things. I showed you the endorsements, but no, that's not what we're going to talk about. That being said, says the author, we should not delude ourselves into believing her appeal as an influencer is based solely on basketball, because it's not. Arguing otherwise is affront to history and reality. Clark's attractiveness to local companies and national corporations is heightened by the fact that she is a white woman who has dominated a sport that's viewed as predominantly black. A straight woman who is joining a league with a lot of LGBTQ plus player population. And a person who comes from America's heartland where residents often feel their beliefs and values are ignored or disrespected by the geographical edges of the country. I told you. And this is written by a black man named Jim Trotter. He sucks. I'm going to go ahead and say it. His pin tweet is about the NFL's commitment to diversity. It extends beyond the sideline and front office, but the numbers in the newsroom. Oh my God, the racism in the NFL is unbelievable. He says about this girl who just clearly wants to play basketball. Now he goes and he says there, of course, she's a great player. She draws attendance. She gets numbers. They've sold out her jersey. But actually, you guys, it's because she's white. I mean, there have been white players in the WNBA before. How come they didn't get everything? This guy goes out and he says, you know, she's a great player. She breaks records. She breaks attendance records. She breaks sales records. They have to move the venues to accommodate the demand for her games. But it's because she's white, you guys. Not because she scored the most points of all time in U.S. college basketball. It's not like we're talking about some supermodel here. No shade to her. She's a regular girl. That kind of sounds mean as well. But like she's not selling sex. Let's go with that. And they're saying it's because of her race. And this is what it will continue to be because weirdos like this want to make it about that. They want to make it about that because she's not playing the game. She clearly is one of these basketball nerds, right? Sidney Crosby, hockey nerd. Messi, football nerd. These people who just put their head down, they get really, really, really good at a sport, and they make it big time. They're not flashy. Michael Jordan was never a guy out in the media. He did the commercials and everything, but he was never the guy who's just like, you know what I mean? He did like thousands of shots per day, for example. Steph Curry is another example, right? These aren't people who are just like, these aren't Dennis Rodmans. These aren't, Aaron Rodgerses. Hard to say that. Caitlin Clark is a basketball nerd through and through. You can tell. Okay? They're going after her because she isn't playing the game and because they have to. The players in the WNBA, the journalists, they can't take it. They can't take that they're the racist ones, right? It's really weird. This girl's so good at basketball. She's selling out tickets, but we can't. This is because she's white, actually, you guys. That's weird. That's crazy person thinking. It's because she's not doing what they want her to do. She's not crying about sexism. She's not crying about racism. That's what they want, and that's what they wanted to get out of this other girl, Angel Reese. Now, listen to what Angel Reese said, and we're going to talk about her and the girl sitting next to her.
I just try to stand strong. Like, I've been through so much. I've seen so much. I've been attacked so many times. Death threats. I've been sexualized. I've been threatened. I've been so many things, and I've stood strong every single time. And I just try to stand strong for my teammates because I don't want them to see me down and, like, not be there for them. So I just want them to always just know, like, I'm still a human. Like, all this has happened since I won the national championship, and I said the other day, I haven't had peace since then. And it sucks, but I still wouldn't change. I wouldn't change anything, and I would still sit here and say, like, I'm unapologetically me. I'm going to always leave that mark and be who I am and stand on that. And hopefully the little girls that look up to me, and hopefully I give them some type of inspiration that, hopefully it's not this hard and all the things that come at you, but keep being who you are, keep waking up every day, keep being motivated, staying who you are, staying 10 toes, don't back down, and just be confident.
So this is the type of girl they want, right? She also got drafted into the WNBA. She is playing a victim. She's giving, empty platitudes. She said she was sexualized, This is a girl who is involved in many fights in basketball. And we talk about her being sexualized. I mean, this is what the girl was in Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. So this isn't just exactly like, people are just photoshopping or doing AI of her photos. She literally went out there and it's like, let me take photos in my swimsuit for all to see. This is the only purpose for the magazine, right? We can go ahead and take a look at her Instagram. Here's a picture of my butt, you guys. This is her picture. And I don't even dislike this girl. She's not even like, in terms of woke personalities, she's not even that bad. We have to remember these people are in their early 20s, these girls. But this is what they want. And they want you to cry for Angel Reese, and they want you to cry for her teammate who said, and this is the girl's teammate who stood up for her and says, you guys are bullying Angel. You're being so mean to her. You guys, she has it so hard. She's so strong. And then she cries 5 seconds later. These are the girls that they want. They want these girls who will pose in skimpy photos and cry that they're victims and say the system's against them, the sexism and everything. Meanwhile, they're starting fights and they're shit-talking people all the time. This is who they want. But they're not getting it out of Caitlin Clark. She just wants to play basketball. And, this is an opportunity for them to do the whole gender pay gap thing, the black-white thing. The WNBA is so amazing. You should be going to see it, even though you never wanted to before. We're over this. Everybody's over this. Nobody gives a hoot about your race games, about your gender pay gap complaints. These people aren't going to be there for you, Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark. They're not going to be there for you. And, if Ronda Rousey was telling the truth, she'd have a point. It should be these girls talking about it. It should be Angel Reese saying, you know what, I was able to sit up there and say I've been sexualized, and none of you people pointed out that I was in a Sports Illustrated swimsuit. It's going to be a close friend of hers or a father figure or an aunt or a mother or a sister who's got to say, you're sounding silly here. You're posting pictures of yourself in a bikini online, and then you're saying I've been sexualized. You're saying you just want the little girls to look up to you, and you're starting fights on the court. Like, somebody needs to say this to her. Caitlin Clark should come out and be like, you guys, as soon as I got signed, you're like, how come she's getting paid more than the gay black players? And how come she's being celebrated because she's white? Like, this is what this girl needs to do. I mean, you give it a few years, you make some money first, right? But, these people aren't going to be here for you. I'm not going to be here for you. And I support you. Think about the people who just want to make money off of you are going to do. So I hope that Caitlin Clark goes in there. I hope she dominates them. I hope she wipes the floor with everybody in the WNBA, and then I hope they continue to call her racist just for the sheer fact that she can see that they were never on her side, that they were never there to support women, they were never there to say, you're breaking glass ceilings, just so she can see, and I don't mean this in a negative way towards her, just so she can come to the realization, and maybe she already has, that this is all empty platitudes. I hope Angel Reese sees that too. And for this guy to be like, oh, look at all her stats she's making, but it's only because of her race. Shut up. Shut up. Nobody cares. Like, this is such a tired viewpoint. It's so boring. This guy gets to cover, the NBA finals and shit like that. He gets to go to the NFL draft, and you're going, the race. Oh. That's what it sounds like to me, and I know that's what it sounds like to you at this point now. I'm so marginalized, and marginalized communities, and underrepresented, and representation matters. We're all so over it. Nobody cares. It's fake and it's lame. Put a chick in it, make it lame and gay, as Cartman says. Let's take a commercial break here. Patreon.com/UOPod is where you can go to get the bonus content. We can go to get bonus podcasts. We can get bonus comedy content. We can get podcasts with Anomaly that I've done. Of course. You'll get sketches. And even if this is available, this is still available. Don't worry. Can we play it from here? We can. Look at that. Louis Brackpool. Look how handsome we both are when I was wearing hair. That's right. Wearing it. Final Fantasy shirt. Comedy content. Don't worry, there will be more Streeter content coming in, I think, June. But if you like the channel and you want to help us out, go ahead and go to patreon.com/UOPod. Follow the links in the description. You will be there. If you want to follow my Blaze News content, I've been doing comedy originals. This week, it was Michael Ridley. Hilarious guy. We're talking about the destruction of the nuclear family. There's a video interview in the article, which we'll quickly scroll through that you can see there. And, you know, you can get all this content at theblaze.com. It's paywalled. It's only a couple bucks. Again, if you want to support me and support my work, you can sign up to The Blaze, sign up to Patreon. You won't get these comedy interviews anywhere else. And they're pretty sweet. This is the second one I've done. We've got more coming next week. And for the foreseeable future, big guests coming too. But comedian Michael Ridley is this week. He's a hilarious Austin comedian. We love him. He's got the mullet. He says the things you want to say. I mean, you can even see this quote here. You're a slave to this sexy gay capitalist monster that lives and breathes off your dopamine receptors, and we are all addicted to it. Michael Ridley. And we're back. That wasn't even me. Imagine that was just a voiceover. We're working overtime here at Unauthorized Opinions. Thank you for everybody watching right now on X, on YouTube, on Twitter, listening on the podcastables. We're just spreading our seed all around the internet right now. Who's it going to hit? Nobody knows. I shouldn't have said that one, you guys. Take me down to Paradise City with that one. But, you know, part of being a writer, which I am, theblaze.com, you got to get images, right? You got to find things to do with your article. And I find myself on image banks, Getty Images being one of them, of course. And, you know, looking for protests, looking for feature photos, protests are always thrown into your face. I think there is a bit of a bias there in what they show you. They're always showing you, you know, gender-related abortion protests, racism protests, BLM protests. Maybe it's what people search for the most, but it's thrown in your face. And I came to a bit of a realization recently, that what they've been doing in protests in the 80s and the 90s, it's pretty much been done. That was like the third time it's been done by then. We're now in like the fifth or sixth time they've tried them. And I took notice from certain images where it's arguments you've heard before. And like I mentioned earlier about the Obamas and the Clintons and the Bidens always acting like, you know, you've never heard this before. Or there's nothing on the internet where they're saying the exact opposite. Like when Joe Biden tells one of his stories and he's told it differently before and he's obviously lying. There is that in imagery. And I bring up some of these because they made me think of that first and foremost. They made me think that the news cycle is perpetually just on rotation, or just a revolving door. This one says Roman Catholic Church. Women priests, yes. Misogynists, no. I mean, that's so low energy, but that's something you could literally think of today and put on a sign. Now, they started letting women be pastors at churches and priests at churches, which is crazy, but you can see it's been in the works for a while. All these images I'm showing you are from the 80s and 90s. Nothing's past, you know, like 1997. I don't remember the exact date on this one. Looks to be the 90s to me. Here's an even older one. I think this is from the early 80s. Women control planes. Why not trains? But put women train drivers. I mean, the word is conductor, but sure. Put women train drivers on the right track. I don't even know what that says. Must stop passing the buck. Something opposes discrimination and something won't act or stand. I don't even know what that says. But they're complaining that women aren't allowed to drive trains. It's another one. Here's one from the late 80s, I believe. Stop AIDS. Teach safer sex. Something are human rights. Gay rights are human rights. Where have we heard those types of terminology before? Stop gay teen suicide. So this is, I guess, an anti-AIDS protest about teaching safer sex. So they want you to teach your kids about sex. And they use these arguments now. Gay rights are human rights. I mean, there aren't different rights. You know, there aren't different human rights. And pretending like it is crazy. But we see that now. Trans rights are human rights. Stop Gay Teen Suicide was one that, you hear this argument for everything the left pushes. If you do not do it, we're going to die. You see, Stop Trans Kids. If you don't give your kid, surgeries and hormones, they're going to kill themselves. So why can't you do that? It's wild stuff. There's another one. Women are powerful and dangerous is this one. Were you seeing that last one? I might not have shown it. Stop Gay Teen Suicide. Teach safer sex. Gay rights are human rights. Hands off my rights. It's all the same terminology we're seeing now. But this one, women are powerful and dangerous. These terms and these phrases have been used for so long to push the same agendas. And if I was naive, I might say, hey, these might just be generational issues. These might just be issues that come up every 10 to 15 years, and people want to talk about them, and they're always, they're always going to be brought up. These are always going to be things people are worried about. But that might be true if you didn't see the same terminology being used to fight for everything. Teach safer sex, hands off my rights, gay rights are human rights, stop gay suicide, you're killing us, don't be a misogynist, women are strong and powerful and dangerous, all these same terms that are being recycled just to manipulate you. I might think, if I was naive, that they were just naturally happening. But the same words that are being used over and over again, climate change, that's changed so many times, even over my lifetime. First, it was the ozone layer. If you're, 18 and a half years old like me, you might remember that from high school. First, it was the ozone layer. There's a gigantic ozone layer you guys got to worry about. Okay, apparently that got clogged up with umbrellas. I'm guessing Antifa did it. Then it was global warming. The warming of the earth is going to melt the polar ice caps. And that wasn't really working. Nobody really cared. And then Al Gore came out and he said, it's all going to happen. The ice caps are going to melt. The sea levels are going to rise, and it's going to happen by 2012. We're all going to die. There was a movie called 2012. Pretty good movie. Just to scare you. The Day After Tomorrow. All these doomsday movies where they start with, a scientist, he's deep in a bunker somewhere. He's watching the satellites. He's watching the seismic shifts, and he's saying it's coming, and nobody believes him. He's got the paperwork right here. Why won't you read it until it's too late? And Jake Gyllenhaal needs to find antibiotics and swim in ice cold waters and be on the telephone as it's coming up to. It's all doomsday stuff. None of that stuff happened, right? And now they just said, you know what? We need to go more generic because none of this stuff happens. We'll just call it climate change and say that you don't believe in it. Obviously, everybody can tell that the climate changes, but we'll still say that you're a climate denier. There's even more specific ones in Canada by this guy named David Suzuki, an environmentalist. He would have like these crazy commercials. He would, one of the commercials, I got to find it for you guys. One of the commercials, he would be standing on a porch and somebody would be using a non-halogen light, like the coil lights. They'd be using an old bulb light, which I think the Biden administration has banned now. And they'd be using this and there'd be factory smoke going on in the background. And then once he changes the light, the factory smoke goes away. Let's see if we can find this. Yeah, I think this is the one. And if not, we'll do our best to find it.
David Suzuki?
Oh, hi, Bob. Just changing this wasteful old bulb with something more modern and efficient.
What's one light bulb gonna do?
You have the power, Bob.
The smoke goes away. If we use these different light bulbs, there will no longer be pollution from the factories. You never explain the middle steps there. I mean, are you saying that the way they produce them causes smokestacks, like smoke to come out of the nearby factories? It's just, this is all you had to explain to a person. This was probably from like 2006. You didn't have to do much. 13 years ago, 2010. You didn't have to do much to convince people back then that, you should just do the right thing. Nobody ever thought like maybe he's being paid by people who manufacture the other light bulbs. You know, maybe Al Gore had something to gain. Maybe Al Gore made a bit of money off of some of the stuff that he did. So I was talking about this stuff, I was looking into those photos and thinking about this stuff, and I got a chance to talk to Sam Hyde the other day, the infamous, content creator, the brilliant mind that he is. It was insane. I'm not gonna sit here and say it was the greatest interview ever. I had not sure what was going on. He didn't really directly answer any questions, but we'll go ahead and we'll give Sam Hyde. I didn't want to say the live stream was with Sam Hyde. It is featuring or with words from Sam Hyde. So here they are. Basically, in the same line of how the news cycle basically repeats itself every couple of days. I was looking through some Getty images yesterday. I
thought you said gay images for a second. My brain's playing tricks on me. Damn it!
You don't know what I do.
All right, go ahead. Getty images. There's bodies buried under that museum, right?
There's a Getty Images museum.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Getty Images Museum. That's what we meant. They got bodies under that too. They got bodies everywhere. Yeah.
So what I was noticing was that there is basically the same protests, the same messaging happening in the 80s and the 90s, just through some of these images. Some of them were like, I'm forgetting right now. Let me look at them right now. One of them is women priests, yes. Misogynists, no. Another one is, teach safer sex, stop gay teen suicide. A lot of these things are things we've heard, agree with me, or the kids are killing themselves. And a lot of these topics are repeating themselves. Do you think, again, do you think that there is a methodology behind this, whereas the powers that be, let's call them, are consistently trying to push out the same messages? Climate change is another one, and just hoping that it sticks one day. Or do you think that this is just a generational thing where people naturally gravitate towards these issues?
No, it's whatever appeal to emotion they can drum up in the moment. And let me tell you something. This is all going to change when we start disregarding women entirely. That's going to happen over the next 10 to 15 years. You're going to start to see people stop listening to women. People start saying, shut up to women.
Have you started?
Are you kidding? Of course.
Go outside and do it right now.
Andrew, did you know that women they have an off button? Did you know that?
No.
It's both their eye sockets. Who's the ex CEO? Yinda Lacarino?
Linda.
He has two big off buttons right here. You just have to press them really hard. Being facetious, but it's coming back, Andrew. Trust me. We're coming back on top. We're gonna get him. What's coming back? Free speech.
Yeah, go on a rant. Just go. Take a few minutes here. Just rant about whatever you want, and I'll bring it to the masses.
Hey, really happy to be here.
You're like that mute comedian now. What's his name?
I feel like the way we're headed is that in the future you're going to see a lot more people going over to YouTube and Twitter instead of doing this in schools and universities.
Does that help?
That helps a little bit, I think. I think I can type that out and not include it in the rest.
Chop
of the
that
video.
up right there. Yeah, hell yeah.
I'll just say that those were pretty much your words anyways. So, wise word from Sam Hyde. You'll notice that a lot of the people in the background were doing weird exercises. That was his crew. So I'm not really sure what happened there. We had a good 20 minutes where I'm not really, and I just noticed that I was doing this in the video too. I want my hair to be a bit flatter, but shout out to Sam Hyde. So I think that will probably see the light of day. I mean, I don't know why. I don't know where or what to do with it is the thing. But shout out to Sam Hyde. I really enjoy his podcast. And then I asked him about his set, and I couldn't really get any answers out of him. But still a fun time. And shout out to Sam Hyde. I really enjoy his content. Something we promised we would address on this podcast is a question from last week's episode 2 podcasts ago, which was Everything is Too White, episode number 148. Go ahead and check that out if you haven't already. But we had a question from somebody named, what was it? No Hudbud 556, and I said I'd address this on this podcast this week. Another person saying, I saw, I love this comment, I think Black Panther was too black. I loved that comment. But this guy says, hey man, let's talk about this. And this is about, what was the episode about? Let's go ahead and scroll up and find out again. Top chat replay. How do we get rid of that? Let's go ahead and X out of that. Right, that was about the 80s movie star Molly Ringwald saying that, you know, her movies that she made couldn't be remade today in the same way because they'd be too white. That would be Ferris Bueller and Pretty in Pink, I think, and Breakfast Club, all these 80s movies. She said they would be too white to make them now. You'd have to make them more diverse. So it says, hey man, let's talk about this. Does it help to highlight this? Or should I just make it even bigger somehow? So are white people being more racist to each other on this one? I don't know. Like, white people, I like white people. That might imply that he's not white. But I don't want a white person to feel they have to tailor their emotions, thought process, or opinion because they are around people of color. For the record, I hate the term people of color. All ethnicities need to stop with the entitlements. Having light skin means nothing to a room full of people who have never met each other, all saying, wow, that looks cool. Wow, that sounds cool. For a fact, whatever they're all examining may not compare in color, size, or identity, but they all like it. Getting caught up in the racial aspect of being human kept us from this point today and becoming human. All humans on this planet now openly or secretly like something or someone that their family or closest peers could not like or disagree with. That's the reality of having a choice, but at what cost now in 2024 are you making that choice because of money? Stuff or things of material will never come for you like a friend or loved one when you're dying. Erase the hate because hate will not make us great. Bus Stop Wizard of Wisdom. And that was No Bud 556. So my thinking there in response to that poignant comment was, I think he's trying to say that, you know, why are we pointing this stuff out? Why are we talking about what Molly Ringwald has to say? It doesn't make a difference. She's a dumb 80s actor. She may have been in good stuff, but who cares what she has to say, right? The problem herein lies is that since 2016 or so, we've been battling this woke, retarded ideology, right? Where it says, no, you should really care about race. If you don't care about race, then you're the racist. People of color and all these things and underrepresented communities. All that stuff is buzzwords for we want to swing you were racist society, I guess. Therefore, we will be racist in response and give us money. That's what it always ends with, is give us money, give us job opportunities. No matter who's doing it, it's because they want to create opportunities for themselves, whether it be a position at a city or a town, you know, the racial equity boards, or a job at a university. Again, the DEI departments. That's what the end goal for all of this is. Black Lives Matter didn't really help anyone. They just, you know, bought a bunch of houses and land and stuff. It was actually, you know, Kamala Harris and other celebrities that bailed people out of jail. And of course, that has some strings attached to it too. But the reason why we point this stuff out is because people have been battling this for so long, and people have been saying that everything's racist for so long, that it's important to point out that when people try to deny that there are stupid points like this being made by people of note, that they are exposed for doing so. Because what these activists will say is, this doesn't actually happen. You're taking what one person says and acting like it's a frequent or often used thing. And that just doesn't happen. Nobody says we shouldn't have white people in things. Nobody says that white people shouldn't be hired for things. It's the Mark Cuban defense, right? Nobody's actually doing the bad things. They're just doing the righteous things. They just want more representation. They just want equal opportunities for everyone of every race. This is not what they want. And you can use their own evidence against them when you present it to them. So when somebody says, you know, I don't hear people saying there shouldn't be as many white people and things, you can point to something like this. You can point to one of these actors saying, actually, I don't think we can have that many white people in a movie today, which is weird because the movie is based off a guy's actual personal life. So it'd be weird if you were just like, actually, your memory needs more black people in it. And the comment about the Black Panther is so funny because it's true. You can't say the Black Panther is too black because what's the response? That's racist. It's because there are no movies with just black people in them or predominantly black people, which is a lie. All you have to do is type in your Google machine and look up, sitcoms and comedies and movies and athletes and whomever pre 2000, whatever you want to go to, and you'll see it. It's weird. To somebody who didn't grow up in that world, it's weird that these people care too much about it. And it's okay if this is something you want to discuss. I'm never going to say don't discuss these things. But when you're angry about it and, you're just exaggerating all so you can get these DEI departments, it's because you're weird. And you're covering up for your own likely racism. I'm not going to say that I know what's in people's hearts and minds, but all this stuff about the people of color, it all has, underrepresentation. It all has weird racial tones under it, which say more about the person than what they're accusing the others of being. People of color means everybody but a white person. Can you do that in a different country that isn't predominantly white? Can you say people of color in China? Can you say people of color in Nigeria? It's because the idea, it's just classic communism. You're trying to say that the majority of people are evil and they're taking away your rights. And then this underclass, which is having their rights trampled upon, whether it's trans or black people or gay or whatever, you need to rise up and usher in this beautiful communist socialist government and everything will be fine. It's just that in East Asian countries, they had to actually, the people were smarter, so they had to say, it's the bourgeoisie and the rich people that are keeping you down. But in the West, they're like, that's not really working, so let's just say it's racism, and because of the way you look, it's much a simpler thing for you to think about. Hey, look how I look. I can't really tell that the person's richer than me in a lot of cases, so we'll just say they hate me for things that aren't my fault. So that's why we need to point them out, because people will say this stuff doesn't happen. People will say discrimination against white people doesn't happen. People will say that, discrimination against Asians getting into college doesn't happen. It happens all the time, and it needs to be pointed out. And that's what I say about that. Let's take a look at some of the chat before we go. Yo, says somebody. What is this, says Kenneth. Kamala Harris is a good example. I guess maybe I should read it before. Good example why your idea is a good example of one of your ideas. She only got to be vice president because she's black and a woman. She also claimed before this, her claim to fame before this was because she was an Indian woman. So they've used both her being brown and black as reasons why she should get a job, even though she dropped out of the race for the DNC as a presidential candidate. She was, I believe, the first one of the major candidates to drop out. She was horribly unliked, and they put her there anyways. There used to be a truck commercial, says New Marcus. There used to be a truck commercial with an Asian guy and a dog, and the tagline was "Dogs love trucks." I'm not sure what that means. Probably something about the dog food market in Asia. I think it was Nissan, he said. Where is Sam Hyde? Something I did want to ask Sam Hyde, but, in my mind one day I'm going to have a Joe Rogan-size podcast that I can ask him on, is the origins of the, putting Sam Hyde's photo out there and saying he's the terrorist or whatever. That's a good time. And that's some of the most brilliant guerrilla marketing ahead of its time. I kind of asked him, are you always thinking forward about what's going to be popular, or is it sort of just your style? And I was talking about his set that he's got with all these 90s TVs. He's got the old @ symbol, which I think is really cool. And I think all this stuff has come back. And, I didn't get a straight answer for that, but that's what I'm thinking about when I talk about, looking forward into the future and trying to predict all these things. Because a lot of the stuff, when you pay attention to the news cycle enough, it all becomes predictable. And you go back and you see these pictures, and it's like, oh, so-and-so, these are really human rights, and you're killing us. It's all been tried before, so it's very easy to predict what is what and who's doing it. I thought the Ukraine war was one of the most obviously sham things ever. When they first started doing this, I was like, there's no way anyone's going to buy this. And then once I started seeing it on every single news outlet, oh, Ukraine, I was like, this should be obvious. And then they have all the neo-Nazis. They have a lot of neo-Nazis. They can't take a promotional picture without some sort of white supremacist imagery ending up on somebody's uniform or a tattoo or something. They even had that one guy accept an award and he had to cover up his Nazi tattoos with a sleeve. You would think that this would all be obvious to people, but who knows? And then, the same guy says they're doing weird calisthenics in the background. This is true. My takeaway here is when we just juxtapose Ronda Rousey and Caitlin Clark is that, one person is going to be really good at their sport and they're not going to say anything and they're going to shit on them for them and call it racist and everything. Then you got another girl who's going to be really good at their sport, but they're going to turn out to be a crybaby, kind of like the other basketball player too. Those are the two dichotomies of man, or in this case, woe man, in sport. And it's needs to be checked. And, I wasn't going to say about anything about Ronda, but like going after Joe Rogan, who has only been nice to this girl, Joe Rogan has a tendency to overhype the female fighters and say they're a bit better than they are. And for her to go after him for that is just ludicrous and just out of this world. And I couldn't take it any longer. Ronda Rousey, if somebody can find that video, link it in the comments or email it to me. Andrew Says TV. Anywhere you want to send it to me. She is the worst. And if you can find that picture, it might even be a GIF you could find. I'll accept that. But of her shadow boxing, like she's whipping to, it predates the rope workout, but it looks like she's lashing 2 whips. That's what it is. UOPod.com. UOPod.com, unauthorizedopinions.com. Go ahead and check out our Patreon. The links are in the description. The links are everywhere, you guys. Thanks for watching. The channel's getting bigger and bigger. We have those video game podcasts. Go back and watch that during the week if you like that, because they're coming for the gamers. They're calling them racist. They're calling them sexist and everything. They're coming for the gamers. Go watch that. If you're listening, we love you. Go ahead and leave us a review. Like, share, and retweet. And all my French people out there, we love you as well. See you guys next week. Don't forget to see my stuff on the Blaze as well.
Turn it up, Jordan.